Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Marsha.
Or should I say strike, or no, what it would be like, worker of the world? Because I have to ask, I've been seeing your Instagram posts about what's going on at work, and are you officially on strike, or is this sort of a precursor to being on strike?
This is the precursor.
Okay.
Our negotiations have been going on for a year now with no result. And so we've been doing a little informational picketing. We had an event on Tuesday at our Soledad campus, and it was a pretty fantastic turnout. We were worried, because you don't want to have an event and then have no one show up and show that, show weakness. But we were pretty sure we were going to get good turnout, and we had, people coming from across the state. Really, we had somebody there from Long Beach, from the local the other CTA unions were there, and our faculty were there, and we picketed at a board meeting, and actually caused something to go differently in the meeting. So, it's a small win. It's not finished by any means, but we got some good results. So anybody who's interested in following what's happening with our faculty, we have an Instagram account at Hartnell Faculty. And we were trying to get up to 200, and we finally made it to 200.
Well, I helped out. I'm following.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, if you're interested in labor struggles, and you want to see more of what I do in my real job, in my day job, I got on TV.
Well, yes, I saw that, and I've seen the video clips of you, and and it's kind of fun too, Kelly, because there's been video clips of people that you work with that I know I've never met them, but you talk about them, so I know their names.
Oh,
and so
yeah.
now it's like, I can put the face with the name now. But I one of the I can't go back and find it now because I think it was in a video, but they read a statement. It was the news. The news coverage and the Hartnell, I don't know who it is, who's doing the negotiation with you, but they released a statement saying that they're working on negotiating and they believe in fair this and fair that. And they're saying all this stuff, but they're not even meeting with you, have they?
Well,
have they even been...
So they're claiming that it was
true.
summer. They're claiming that it was summer and we weren't negotiating during the summer, which is true.
Okay.
What the team told them at the end of last spring was, if you have something better than this to bring to us, give us a call. But if you're still at this point and you don't have anything better to bring us, there's no need for us to continue meeting.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting. They actually, at the end of spring, I don't know how interesting this is for our listeners, but at the end of spring, the HR director brought brought a proposal to the team that she really didn't even have authorization from the board. It's our board. Right, it's our board of trustees that are behind it all, and so people are trying. But if you're negotiating, if you're negotiating and you don't really even have authority to make changes at the table, that's hard.
Yeah.
So anyway,
okay. Well, we won't But it sort of the statement, the other thing too about being fair and equitable, where all the news coverage and what everybody's been saying is that the people in administration, I don't know if that's the correct term, but the top are getting pay raises, but the faculty and staff are not getting them. And you've not had one, correct, for a while?
Right.
So I was wondering how, you can't speak for them, Kelly, so this is a rhetorical question, but can they say that's fair and equitable when only one group is getting any kind of pay raise?
Yeah, that was kind of our
that's
point.
Why you're that's potentially why you're striking, because it's like that statement doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So it doesn't seem. Anyway.
Right. So we have negotiations set up. There's 3 all-day meetings in this month, September. And so hopefully we will be seeing some of that equity coming to the meeting.
Really? Hey, share that equity with us.
That's right.
Anyway. Okay. Well, should we talk about, I don't know, more pleasant things? I don't know. I think
let's
talk about more pleasant things.
Let's talk.
Well, I don't know.
Let's move on.
When you hear what I have, when you hear what I have to say, it may not be any more pleasant. No, I'm kidding. It's much more pleasant.
Well, before we move on to your unpleasantness, let me just do a little housekeeping at the beginning, okay?
Yes.
So first of all, I just wanted to send out a thank you to Jill, who increased her pledge on Patreon. We really appreciate our patrons, and Jill, we really appreciate you, especially for increasing your pledge. And if anyone else is interested in supporting us on Patreon, our Patreon page is patreon.com/2Us. And the link is up at the very top of our show notes. It always talks about how to become a patron. And so what do you get as a patron? Well, you get our gratitude, and you get the feeling of being able to know that your dollars are supporting the podcast, our hosting, our shipping, mailing and shipping costs. Sometimes we have shipping to international community members. And we're able to do that because of our patrons, and any number of things that go in. The technology that some of the technology tools and software that we have for recording the podcast has been supported by our patrons, and so that's what your patronage is able to do for us. And I think that is really super important. We're able to have the community we have because we have people helping us to support those costs. And we really appreciate it. So thank you, Jill, for increasing your pledges.
Should we talk about our other comment we have? So Sherry had a very nice comment about the podcast. So she said, I really enjoy your podcast. However, do you ever think you could do a YouTube channel together? And then she has some ideas about how we could do this. Kelly, why don't we do video?
Because Marsha doesn't want to. No, I'm kidding.
They would require that we be dressed. That would be one thing.
Yes. I'm in my robe right now, sitting at my desk, recording with Marsha. And honestly, I think neither one of us really has the technical expertise to do a video and do it well, right? We do have a YouTube channel. Yeah. And what you get on the YouTube channel is the audio version of our show. So if you like,
and our logo scrolling through,
it's just a static logo as you listen. Because I know some people do, they do use YouTube, and we have subscribers on YouTube. And I don't know if they use the subscription just to get a heads up that there's a new show, or if they go in and listen through YouTube. But we do have a YouTube channel. We have occasionally put videos on the YouTube channel. We did a couple of Zoom episodes during the pandemic that we put onto YouTube. And I don't know if they're still up, but I had some B videos from one of our episodes up on our YouTube channel. So yeah, it's Sherry. I appreciate that you really want to see us on YouTube. We're not YouTubers. Sorry. I kind of want to even just say we're too old for that.
Well, let me just say never, Kelly.
Right.
Like, honestly, if we really wanted to, we would learn the technology. Okay. So, I think that there's more involved in editing video than there. Well, I don't think I know there's a lot more involved in editing video than there is audio. We are not always in our finest when we record, so that would not be the end of the world. It might be good for us to get dressed in the morning, that kind of thing. But it's just like, I think you have to do more with lighting. Sound. I don't know. There's a lot of things I think that you have to do more with. I do never say never, but right now I'm Kelly, what I'm going to say is never say never, but right now I'm saying never.
I think there's a good possibility that we might do another Zoom live episode that then the video goes onto YouTube. That's not out of the realm of possibility for the future. Right now, just our schedules, it's difficult enough for us to find the time for us to work together to do the audio part, and getting a good time for others to join in on the video on the Zoom would just be harder. But it's also possible that we could create some short content, other kind of content. Maybe the kind of thing you would put up on Instagram. Definitely not a full episode, but maybe short something or other, that we could put up, on YouTube as well as on Instagram. Yeah. I know I did a couple of Instagram lives when I was creating a weaving project, and I did a couple of those during the pandemic as well. I did not put them on YouTube, but that was kind of fun. And I did a little tour of my backyard at one point on Instagram. So that's a possibility to put some little short things like that onto YouTube. They've made it a little easier to get little short videos on, like your Instagram's format, that vertical Instagram format. So anyway, I really appreciate the feedback and
that you want to see us. That's very sweet. Super sweet that you want to see us.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Yes. So thank you, Sherry. And then we also had feedback from Suzanne, and she was responding to the question about why in the world would anyone block socks? And she said, the only reason I can think of is for photographing purposes for sock designers. Then they would use those sock blockers that are sold by Knit Picks and other places. Keep up the good work, Suzanne. So yeah, thanks, Suzanne. I think that does make sense if you really are photographing, or if you had a YouTube channel so you could show off your socks. If you have really the need to show your socks in their best light, I think that's really a good thought. That's what the sock blockers would.
Is that our housekeeping?
That's our housekeeping. Yes. Now let's hear your woes, Marsha.
Okay. First, I'm going to say about my woes. I listened to our last episode when I was talking about my espinner, and I wanted to tell myself to shut up. Just stop it. Too much complaining. Too much detail. So I'm going to make this short, and I will not go into such detail. So I'm going to first start with success. So guess what I finished, Kelly?
Ooh.
I finished the Noromania blanket.
I see a couple of bottles of champagne in your future, Marsha.
Yes. Well, in fact, we always have, Kim and I always have a bottle of champagne when we finish something major. She just finished a sweater. I finished the blanket, and we were going to get together, and she showed me the bottle of champagne she had. We both agreed that it was not good enough. We needed a better quality champagne because of this blanket. So we've yet to have a champagne, but anyway, so yes, I finished the Noromania blanket. And so I'm going to give you some stats on this.
All right.
I used 42 balls of Noro Kureyon, which is an Aran weight. And the finished size after blocking is 71 inches wide and 83 inches long.
Wow.
Okay, so I took a picture of it when I washed and blocked it, and I laid it out on towels in the guest room, which is 2 twin beds pushed together, which I believe that's considered a king size.
Mm-hmm.
And it covers the bed and hangs off the edge a little bit. So
Nice.
I sent a picture of it to my brother, and he jokingly said, "Do you think it's big enough? It could be bigger." And I texted back, "Any bigger, you would suffocate under it. I mean, you would get stuck under it and not be able to climb out from underneath it." So anyway, as I said, it was 42 balls of the Noro Kureyon, which is 4,578 yards.
Wow.
And I did the math with, if I multiply the number of stitches I cast on and then the rows I knit, it's 173,680 stitches.
Holy mackerel.
No wonder my hands hurt. And then the funny thing is, the irony of all of this is I ran out of yarn as I was binding off. So and I could not make myself unravel that to take out a row. And so what I did is I went down in the basement and found some leftover lamb's pride from another blanket I had made. And the reason I wanted lamb's pride is it's a single, it's an Aran weight single, where the Noro Kureyon is an Aran weight single. So it matched. It matched pretty well. So I'm sorry. Did I say Aran weight? It's not the lamb's pride was a worsted weight.
Okay.
But it matched better than the Aran weight that I had. So it is a different color, but in the bind off, but there's 10 million colors in that blanket. So
that's right.
No one's going to know unless now I'm telling everybody here, but going forward, I'm not going to show anybody and nobody will know. So it's done.
It's our little 2-use community secret.
Yes. Okay, so now I am going to touch on my espinner. So Maurice at Dreaming Robots was great. He sent me the new motor, and I got it installed, and I'm back in business.
Yay!
And I've been spinning. I'm calling this Project Flowers from my garden, because it's all the roving that I'm spinning is all named after flowers. So I now have 5 skeins, but I have to say I was really, over Labor Day weekend, this past weekend, I was just really going to just spin and try and finish all of that roving. So I'd be done by Labor Day, which is the end of the summer spin in, and couldn't do it. I spun for a while, and now that I can't do it, I need to take a break. So I need to move on to something that had less emotion around it, so to speak. So I've just set it aside. I'm going to keep spinning on it. I'm not done for sure, but I just needed to move on to something that I thought was going to be more successful. So now
oh no.
So no. So it's okay, but I was okay. So I'll just tell you what. So Snowflower by the pullover sweater by Heidi Kermeyer, the one that I've been planning on making, and I've been swatching, and I've been all this work on figuring out what colors I want, and so that's all decided.
Do you?
And I
remember,
don't remember. I think
I'm trying to think back. This is probably like 3 years ago. You started talking about this. Or maybe longer, maybe even pre-pandemic, you had kind of started talking about it and plans to dye yarn, and then decided to buy yarn instead. So I'm happy that you're starting this sweater. This is really cool.
Yes, well, and the thing is, I bought yarn to dye from this company. So basically I had like a sage green from, and actually I just realized I don't have the name of the company, the yarn, but it's it's called 13 Mile yarns, and it's based in Montana. And I had bought the yarn years ago at Tolt over in, because that's carnation.
I'm going to interrupt you again, Marsha. Was this back when you let Ben stay home from school so he could drive you around?
Yes.
When he was first driving and he drove you on the yarn crawl.
Yes, he was really unhappy at school, just having a lot of stuff at school. And I said, you know what? It is educational because you're going to be driving, and practicing. So he drove me on the yarn crawl. And so anyway, yes, that was sort of the bad parenting / good parenting, depending on your viewpoint, that you let your child skip school to take you driving to yarn shops. But yeah, so I bought this yarn there. So that's a long time ago because he's 25 now. So, but I didn't have enough yarn to make an entire sweater. So I thought, I'll do a colorwork sweater. Found the sweater, love it. Just ordered more yarn with the idea to make there are like snowflakes in there. And then I wanted to have like a red, I thought like a rust color, and I was going to dye it, blah, blah, blah. Make a long story short, none of that is happening. But I did get some, I don't know if I talked about this in the last episode, but Kim and I went to Acorn Street Yarns here in Seattle and picked out, it seems sort of odd, but a kind of a dusty rose. It looks really nice with it. So anyway, I'll get to my sad story. But, there's a reason why my Ravelry name is Better in Motion. It's better just to keep moving and get back on the horse when you fall off. So the way the sweater is designed is you cast on, for my size, 312 stitches. And you use a provisional cast on. And then you join in the round and you knit the yoke up from like under the arms up to the neck, and you're going to bind off. When you're done with that, you go back and you remove the provisional cast on, pick up those live stitches and knit the body down to the waist. Okay. And then finish with the arms. And they give you obviously explicit instructions when you join your 312 stitches in the round. Do not twist the stitches.
Oh my God.
I was very careful, or so I thought the first time, and twisted my stitches. So
and of course you can't tell that until after you've done a few rows of 300 something stitches.
I had knit 2 inches probably.
Oh God.
And started the color work when I discovered this. And so I'm better in motion, keep moving. So I ripped it out and did it again. Very careful. And this time I pinned it. I had a towel on the bed and I pinned it all in the correct way and convinced I had it right. I kept checking it. I was convinced I had it right. And I again knit 2 inches and I discover it's twisted.
No.
And I was very upset, and I thought I took the dog for a walk, and then I came back and took a shower, and I swear our greatest thinking takes place in the shower. Because all of a sudden I thought, I think and the other thing is, let me just say, like for example, I'm working on a pair of socks right now, and it is very difficult, even with 68 stitches on a sock, to not twist those when you're joining it in the round. So what I started doing is I just knit 4 rows flat, and then I joined it in the round, and you have a little 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch gap, right, at the top, at the ribbing of your sock, and then when you're done with your sock, I just stitch it up. Nobody can tell, right?
Right.
So I wanted to do that on this sweater with the 312 stitches, but you immediately join in the round and then you immediately start decreases. And I could not figure out how to knit some fabric in that main color doing the decreases. The decreases happen on the knit side of the stockinette. I didn't know how you do decreases, half of them on the wrong side, on the purl side, to get and also to get the stitches slanting the correct way, right? Because on either side of the marker, either you're going to knit 2 together or you're going to slip, knit. I couldn't figure that out. So my brainstorm as I was in the shower and what I did was, I did the provisional cast on. I just knit 1 row with the main color, and then took the needles off, just I have those interchangeable needles, just put the stoppers on. And then I went and the legs that are created from the provisional cast on, the backside that you don't have your main color knit into, there's like 2 legs. And I just went with a small needle and I picked up that leg. And so let me just back up too and say my provisional cast on, I did in a bright yellow. So it was really clear that was my provisional cast on. And then I picked up with a bright blue, that one leg, and I knit 4 rows and then I bound off. And so it gave me some fabric. And then what I did is I laid it out on a pillow, pinned the whole thing. And then I have these like little tiny clips. They look like little clothespins, kind of little clips that where it joined, I clipped that together, kind of overlapping. And then I kept it pinned to the pillow and I just kind of kept knitting around and turning the pillow. Crazy. Okay. Did that all the way around. And then every row I would double check and make sure, yes, it's still now, nothing's twisted. So like for 7 rows, I think I checked to make sure it was not twisted.
And you knit from a pillow.
It's not. Yes. Crazy. I know, crazy.
No,
so
it makes sense. It's a good technique. Wow. That's just
So I'm going to put this out to listeners. I have a question, like really, so if you have that number of stitches, 312, even if like socks, 68, do you have a tried and true method of joining in the round if you don't have the ability to knit the fabric flat for, say, 4 or 5 rows? You do a provisional or not even a provisional cast on, you cast on and then 1 row. How do you join that many without twisting?
Yeah.
And I would be really interested to know, because there's probably a more efficient way of doing it than what I did, where I had to take the time to knit.
Knit on a pillow.
312 stitches 5 times or whatever I did,
And attached to a pillow.
Yes.
The part that gets me. You were knitting fabric that was attached to a pillow.
Oh my God. Anyway, so I have to say, I did have to remind myself that my Ravelry name is Better in Motion, and that the reason it's called my Ravelry name is Better in Motion is I do believe if you just keep moving, everything will be okay, right? And so I had a overwhelming desire to take the whole thing and just throw it away, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
I have to report in to our listeners, and I have to keep it together like an adult, even though sometimes I don't feel like an adult. So I was laughing and I was thinking, okay, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to call this episode. And so it had maybe something about Better in Motion or just keep moving. But then I also thought too, something about threes, because this is my 3rd sweater that I've had to knit 3 times. Now, Ben's, I fully knit, I got the whole body done and had to rip it out and do it 3 times, right? This one, I only got about 2 inches both times. And then my brother's sweater, I've done it twice, and I'm about ready. I'm going to have to rip it out and do it a 3rd time. So I don't know. The trouble with threes.
Yes.
How we used to say about Walla, the motto in Walla Walla is a town so nice they named it twice.
Right.
It could be something like a sweater so nice I knit it thrice or something.
3 sweaters so nice you knit them thrice.
Yeah, 3 sweaters so nice I knit them thrice. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm on track, and I will report in that there are 40 rows of color work, and I'm on row 12, I believe.
Okay.
So, do you remember?
I'm kind of inspired by this story to learn how to do left and right slanted increase or decreases on the purl side. Like I know I've seen classes where you just make big swatches and you do every single kind of decrease that goes left slanted so you can compare them. right? I did a class with short rows and we did like 5 different kinds of short rows in our swatch. So you can compare like, oh, this type of short row looks like this and this type of short row looks like that. Mm-hmm. It makes me want to go find one of those classes or video tutorials or whatever, or even just experiment on my own with a list of the different types of decreases for purling. And just like, okay, which one's slant left and which one's slant right. So then I have this swatch I can refer back to in case this ever happens to me. I don't want to knit off a pillow. I'm still trying to picture that. Now that would make a good YouTube video. I'm sorry you didn't record yourself.
Well, I didn't videotape it, but I did take pictures. So I will. In fact, I'm going to make a note here to post it in the show notes because I try to typically just post finished things, but I'll post it what I did.
Marsha's pillow knitting technique.
My pillow talk.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why I find that so amusing, but it just makes me laugh to just picturing what that must look like. I'm actually glad I didn't already have the pictures because my mind is going in a few different directions.
Well, and
here.
The thing is, honestly, the truth is, like your comment now, like you just want to watch a YouTube tutorial. It never even occurred to like why this didn't. Well, it didn't occur to me to look up a tutorial to figure out how to do slanting left right decreases on the purl side. I did look a YouTube tutorial search how to join it around when you have 312 stitches, like a map. And all I could find was like how so you don't see that jog or that there was nothing about how to keep those stitches organized and untwisted. So so anyway, okay. But
you have
onward and upward.
You have a future as a YouTuber, Marsha. You could put that. You can make that video and put it on YouTube, and you would have 1 billion hits. You'd go viral. Because everybody wants to know that. How do you join 312 stitches in the round without twisting? Oh my God. Okay, we have to move on because this is too much of the podcast with me laughing.
Well, I'm glad you're getting some pleasure out of my pain. So, no, actually, I think I am really, as I said, I would like to know from listeners if they have a better idea. I think my idea was kind of brilliant, but I'm sure there's another brilliant out there because I just,
Well, and the reason
worked.
it didn't occur to you to go look for that tutorial is because you had this brilliant idea and that's the motion, right? Like stopping to go learn stuff and then come back to no, you just wanted to keep going. You just wanted to get those needles back in the yarn and get going. So I totally understand it. And I do think it's brilliant. I just, it just makes me laugh.
Well, anyway, I'm back on track. So,
cool.
I know what I wanted to say before you started laughing at my situation so much. What I wanted to say too is, do you remember part of my issue with my brother's sweater is I didn't like the color work, the tension on it. And what I really discovered is it's the yarn. It's very bulky yarn for that color work, I think.
And for the gauge.
And for the gauge, I'm still going to finish that sweater at some point. And this is what I've talked about is I had to go on to something more successful before I can go back to that sweater. Ironically, I did Ben's sweater and then now this one. But anyway, I will say my color work looks very good. I think it obviously needs to be washed and blocked, but there's no puckering. And when I sort of pull it, there's stretch to it, more like so I think it's going to be good. So I'm pleased with that. Okay. Enough of that sweater. Nanny Meyer Tea Cozy. I finished the first side. And so I'm going to work on that. I'm working on that periodically. I still have on here Santa's Laundry Line because I'm going to start that. That's the by Eleanor von Castlemuir, and it's the darling little Santa's suit and socks and scarf and hat or thing on a little laundry line. And so I'm going to start that soon. But I think that's, once I get going, really moving on my sweater, then I'm going to start that.
Oh, that's good, because Aunt Betty's been asking me.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, tell her there's no news. And then I did cast on another pair of socks because I had finished a pair. And so I'm just doing regular, vanilla socks. And I'm using yarn that I bought over at Yarn Folk over in Ellensburg. And is that the name of the store?
I think so.
Anyway, I think so, yeah. Anyway, it's yarn. It's called Knitterly Things Vesper Sock Yarn in the colorway Some Summertime. And it's knitting up stripes that are about, each stripe I think is like 4 rows. And then it changes and it's like a hot pink, a pale pink, hot orange, lime green, aqua, purple, very colorful. And then I'm going to do the heels and toes in Dreaming Color Mini Smooshy in the colorway Bermuda Teal, because I'm going to do the heels for sure, because I don't want to break up the color, the striping.
Oh yeah,
so that's kind of my thinking on that. And that's it for me for projects.
All right. Well, that's cool. You have something. A major project new, and a sock project new.
Yes.
So that and
I'm
big,
out from underneath
giant,
the weight of that blanket.
Yes, that finish is nice. I do have a question about the blanket. Is he planning to use it on the bed or because he could actually use it as a blanket, like for covers. But that would be a shame, kind of, because then it would be covered up. Or he could use it as a bedspread, but I know he has a plan. I mean, he already has that. But yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know, because I know he has on his bed, I know he has a Pendleton blanket. So I'm not sure. I truthfully, I don't really know how my brother sleeps. I don't know what he does, but I don't know how I really don't know.
Yeah.
I made it. And I think I think also the idea is my thought, it was going to be a blanket, like an Afghan, that you would have like on the back of the sofa when he's watching TV in the basement, he can use it. But it's now like a little miscalculation on just the sheer size of it. So I'm not really sure what the plan is. But now it's not my issue. It just has to leave my house. So it's still here. He's not picked it up. But
he does like things to be good sized. So.
Oh, yeah. He likes everything big.
Yeah.
The bigger, the better,
Very cool.
But it's big.
Congratulations on that finish. Yeah. That's nice.
Yes.
Very cool.
So anyway, okay, Kelly, your projects. Well, and you have a lot to talk about too. Projects and then also the fleece auction.
So, Marsha, my projects, yes. Let me just talk a little bit about my spinning. I had mentioned last time that I had been working on carding that Corriedale Targhee Merino Cross fleece. And I wanted to get that one completely out of my stash, and I was successful. Well, it's out of my fleece stash. It's now in my carded bat stash. But I did get in spinning progress, I did get the blue-green one. It really is a peacock color. And I got that one. All the singles are spun. I had thought maybe I would apply them when I went to the auction, but I didn't. I decided not to bring my wheel after all, and I just brought my knitting. So, but I got those. Those are ready to apply. It's about 3.5 ounces, I think, of those singles, and it'll be a 3-ply to match the other Corrie Targhee Merino that I have spun this summer. And then I started a new project, which is what I'm knitting on today while we talk. It's from my mom's. I think I might have mentioned it on the last episode. I picked out the best of the acrylic from my mom's leftovers that she had given me, and I had brought the box to the Knocker's Retreat. And so what came home with me, I took out the best of it, and I started a baby blanket, and I'm using this old Afghan pattern because she also gave me a bunch of her old patterns. So it's this leaflet for 3 classic Afghans, and one of them is the granny square crochet Afghan, and one of them is the sort of the classic crochet ripple or like chevron, the one that has the zigzag, that does the zigzag. And then there's a knitted zigzag Afghan. And so I'm doing the knitted zigzag version. I'm making a baby blanket. And the colors, it was kind of fun because I just grabbed out all of the best feeling acrylics, and because she had like soft spun and I don't know different ones that were fairly soft. She also has a lot of that sort of Red Heart Super Saver that has kind of, to me, has kind of a harsher feeling to it. So, but when I put all the colors together, there's a burgundy, a gray, a gold, a light turquoise, a dark turquoise, kind of a taupey brown color, and then a cream. And I thought, I think these will all go together. And so I started knitting with them together. And I'm doing a trick that I often do when I'm not sure what, I don't have a plan really. I'm just going to kind of go by ear, play by ear. So what I did was I weighed all of my acrylic yarns, and then I have my scale with me. And so as I'm knitting like half or a third of the ball, so that then I can kind of mirror the other side. I'm not going to do an exact mirror of the other side, but I'm going to kind of pick up some of the colors and do a mirror image. And then some of them I divided in thirds so I can put something in the middle. So I'm just kind of playing by ear, changing colors. And then the other color that I have is like a cream. I have a whole skein of that. So I know I have enough with that whole skein of the cream. But I don't want to have just a wide swath of white, what looks like white in a baby blanket. That's not good. Right. Babies are messy. So I'm trying to stripe in the cream in mostly like 2-row stripes. I'm not going to be able to do that exclusively, but I'm trying to kind of stripe in the cream strategically so it doesn't look like a big giant swath of cream. I've got about, I don't know, maybe 18 inches. I think I maybe have about 18 inches done. So I'm about ready to start the downside, the back half, the second half. Because it's going to be it's not going to be a gigantic baby blanket. It's going to be kind of on the small side, I think, because I don't want to use so much of as much of the white as I probably won't use all of that creamy white color. So anyway, that's been pretty fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's the pattern is simple enough that after the first few rows, I have it memorized. It's really the same 2 rows over and over. So that's my new project. I don't have anything else that I've been working on. Oh, well, I have my sock. I haven't looked at the sock at all. I haven't done anything with the sock since the last episode. And then the only other thing that I've been doing since the last time we recorded is I bought fleeces and I got some of them washed. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then it was
well, before you go on to that, I just have one question. Going back about projects, the Summer Fjord Revisited, that one. Have you figured out a color yet, or we don't need to go into a lot of detail, but are you figured out? Because the last time we talked, I think it was that rust color you didn't like.
Yeah, I haven't even taken that part out. The color work I don't like, I haven't even ripped it out. It's like 2 rows. I just have to go back 2 rows. So I haven't even done that. It's just, once I decided I wasn't happy with that color, I basically just put it in the bag and Haven't looked at it since.
Completely understandable. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
I think I might
get back to fleece.
Bring it back. Well, I think I might bring it back. The 2 Knitlet Chicks have their sweater cal in the fall. And I think I might bring it back to do for that. It's a, it's a tee. It's a summer tee. It won't be something that I'll probably wear much if I get it finished in the winter, but that's all right. It'll be a project for that time period probably if I get back to it.
Yeah.
So, but no, I haven't made decisions about that yet. I'm not in motion on that, Marsha. My motion came to a standstill because I have to think about the colors. Yeah. So,
well, I honestly questioned my motto so severely. So, all right. Anyway, but let's hear about this fleece.
Okay. So, I went to the fleece auction, and I really apologize. I have been talking about it as being on Monday, Labor Day, but they actually changed it from Monday to Sunday last year. And I don't know. I just didn't remember. that. So the fleece auction was on Sunday, the day before Labor Day. I had Monday off, so that was great because I had time to do some playing around with my fleeces. So the two fleeces that I washed, I got a gray Romney, it's kind of a dark gray, kind of steel gray Romney. And when I laid it all out, because I have now discovered, I'll say, that I do like to skirt my fleeces even after they're pretty well skirted for the show, but I have become much more ruthless in my skirting. And so I do like to lay the fleece out. I lay it out on a sheet on my driveway in front of the garage. And I try to see if I can figure out what's the front, what's the back. This year they were rolled really nicely. The judge unrolled them as she was judging them, at least a little bit, and then rolled them back. And so they were all rolled really nicely, and I was able to see, what was the front, what was the back. And the outer part of the fleece, which would have been like the lower part of the lower part of the sides and the hind end and the, lower part of the chest was all darker than the middle of the fleece, which would have been the part, over the back. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to sort this by color. And so I skirted off some of the more coarser parts of the fleece from the back end and nearer the legs. Tossed that away. I had probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 ounces that I took off of it. I didn't weigh the waist, but I had a pile of waste that I took off of it first. I shook it a lot in case there were second cuts. One of my mistakes in previous years is that I have not been careful about that. And depending on the fleece, there might be a few second cuts that you can just see and pick off, or there might be lots of them. And then they get if they get washed into the fleece and then carded into the fleece, you have bits you have to pick out as you're spinning, and that's not fun. So I tried to shake off as many of those second cuts, and a lot of dirt and debris falls off at the same time when you do that. And then I washed the nice part, the lighter part of the steel gray. So half the fleece is now washed, and it's out in the backyard on an old screen. I think it's probably dry. I haven't been out there to check on it since Monday, but I think it's probably dry. So that'll go back in the bag, in a pillowcase in the bag with the raw fleece. So I have in the pillowcase, I'll have the washed fleece ready to card or comb. And then I also have in that same bag, outside of the pillowcase, the rest of the fleece. And I tagged it. I tagged all my fleeces. So they have the year, the grower, the poundage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and I added them to my inventory, which I'll talk about later. So anyway, that one's done. Really nice fleece. I wasn't planning to buy a gray Romney, but I think I mentioned to you already, there were quite a few fleeces this year that went no sale. No one bid on them, even at the minimum bid. And a lot of fleeces went for their minimum bid, their minimum price. So I kind of tried to help out. That's my excuse. I'm
Do your part.
doing my part.
Save a fleece,
I'm
right?
doing my part for World Fleece. And I bought this gray Romney that I hadn't actually planned on, but I do like Romney, and I do want more rug yarn. I have a batch of rug yarn that I want to use, but it's not enough for the size of rug that I want to make. So that gives me something to use. And then I also, the fleece that I knew I was planning to get if I could was an East Frisian fleece that was in the breed class. And it is a dairy breed, the East Frisian. And it looks like it's kind of a medium kind of workhorse type fleece, the same kind of fleece as maybe some of the other dual purpose breeds where, people grow them for meat, but they also can use their fleeces. So it's pretty soft. It's not, when I read about them, it sounded like it would be a pretty coarse fleece, but this one seems like it'll be pretty soft, medium weight, a medium coarseness. Maybe kind of akin to Dorset or Corriedale, more traditional Corriedale, just to give people an idea. I laid that out and divided it up, and I thought, well, I'm going to divide this up in quarters. I'm not going to wash it all or spin it all, plan to spin it all. But I want to spin some of it right away because I'm just really interested in this breed because I've never spun this breed before. That's why I got it from the fair. So I skirted, again, ruthlessly, so that some of the parts that were coarser, I thought, I don't really need this coarser part of the fleece at all. So I probably took about a pound off of that one. And then I also shook it. This one, I have to say, needed a better shearer. The sheep's name is Mr. Magoo. And poor Mr. Magoo could have used a better shearer because there were second cuts all over the place in this fleece. And the second cut is when the shearer swipes the clippers over the sheep and then realizes that they didn't get close enough and then swipes the shearers over it again. So the part that's already been sheared is being sheared again, and all those little tiny bits of the fleece were there. So I really shook the crap out of this fleece. I divided it up into 4 pieces, and then I took each one of those 4 pieces and I just shook it and shook it and shook it and shook it until stuff stopped falling off. And I had a lot of second cuts. So when I washed it, I took it out and shook it again, just one last time before I put it in the wash water. And then when I wash the other parts of it, I have a note in the bag to just shake it one more time to get any leftover second cuts that I didn't get the first time, because there were a lot, but it was a value. This fleece was a good value. I got it for a really good price. Nobody bid against me, so I got it for the minimum bid. And I didn't get it because it was, prepared beautifully for a hand spinner. I got it because I wanted an East Frisian fleece, and it was the softest of the East Frisians in the show. So this one is soaking in a bucket. I put it in cold water, in a bucket, one of those 5-gallon buckets, put the bag of fleece into the 5-gallon bucket. And what comes off right away when you put a fleece into the water is called swint. And I know we've talked about washing fleeces before, but we might have some new listeners. And in fact, I met one of our listeners, Lori Borealis, was at the show, and she's asked a few questions about what she does with her first fleece. So I just want to make sure that I talk about this. So what I'm doing is I have it in a bucket, and the first flush of like brown, orangey brown stuff that comes off, that's usually the color that my fleeces are when I wash them from this area, from this area. And that's swint that's coming off, which is like I want to say like the equivalent of sheep sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's actually totally accurate, but anyway, it's really slippery. It makes the water feel sort of soapy. And then if you leave it in the water with the swint, that soapiness helps to clean the fleece. So one of our listeners, Kathy Straight Fork in Ohio, she was talking about having one of her fleeces that she washed during the spin in with a swint bath, and then she just had to do another one additional wash to get the lanolin off with hot water. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to reduce the amount of washing that I have to do. And there's a whole process where the swint ferments, and then that helps to clean the fleece. And some people do, and when the swint ferments, you actually can clean the lanolin off the fleece this way without the heat.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. If you and it takes don't you let it sit there like a month or something?
Yeah, and and I don't know that Kathy did that, but and I don't know if I'm going to do that. But right now it's sitting out in a bucket with a lid on, not a lid tightly on it, but a lid on it. And it's been there since Monday. And I went out to smell it this morning, and it doesn't smell great, but it still kind of smells. I can still sort of smell the sheep smell as opposed to a fermenty smell. So yeah, I'm going to leave it out there for a little while and see what happens. I'm kind of curious to use this washing process. And I'm not dying to spin it right this minute, so it can definitely wait out there. So we'll see. I may end up having to take it out of the swint bath before it ferments, or I may leave it in there and see what happens. I've never done a full on, actual fermented swint bath on a fleece before. I have had a fleece sit in a bucket for like 3 weeks. But it never got, whatever I did, it didn't ever get to a fermenting stage. It was just a bucket of dirty water.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested to find out how this works, because it sounds like you use a lot less water cleaning the fleece than you would because the way I've done it before is just a bucket of Dawn dishwashing to get rid of the dirt and debris, and hot water to get rid of the lanolin. And so it'll be interesting to see how long you can leave it in the bucket. Does that actually does the lanolin actually detach from the wool?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see, and then because it sounds like you do use less water in this method.
And I have started to use a process where I always do a cold water soak first. But then, but then after I do a couple of cold water soaks, I drain it out I have a drain and spin setting on my washer. And so I drain it, and then I do the wash with the hot water. And that just saves on using hot water. You can get out the biggest part of the dirt first, and then the biggest part of the dirt and swint first, and then use the really hot water to get the lanolin to release from the fleece.
Yeah.
Because you need pretty hot water. I mean, my washer doesn't give me that hot of water anymore, so I now have to help fill the washer with the faucet. We have an on-demand water heater, and you have to have a really good flow of water to get the water to its hottest. to get the furnace water heater to kick on and get it to its hottest. And the washers nowadays, they fill and stop and sense and fill and stop and sense. And so getting really hot water to come out of my washer it just doesn't do it. So I did do that when I washed the Romney fleece. I did the cold water soak first, then I washed it in the washer with hot water that I put in from the faucet to supplement what was coming in, from the washer. And just to let Lori know, and anybody else who hasn't washed a fleece, I fill the tub of the washer first. This is just on the soak cycle. I use the soak cycle that my washer has. And so I fill the tub of the washer first with as hot a water as I can get. And I can barely keep my hands in it. It's so hot. And then you can use Dawn, or I used Dawn for years. And now I have Orvis paste, which is a sheep cleaning, horse cleaning, livestock cleaning product. Or you can use like Unicorn Power Scour. There's a few different scouring products out there.
And I'm sorry, Kelly, back up. It's called Orvis paste, like Orvis paste? Okay.
VIS or VUS. It's like the Latin name for sheep, like in the species name for sheep, I think.
Oh, okay.
And quilters use it too. It does say on the label that it's livestock quilting. So I use that. I've been using that to wash, and I really like it. It doesn't have a smell. The Dawn, I used to like the smell, but they've changed the formulation a lot since I first started using it back in the late 90s. And I'm not really fond of the smell anymore. So that's why I switched. So fill the tub, put the fleece in, let it soak, not too long, not long enough for the water to get cool, I stir it around a little bit. And then I drain. Then I have a spin and drain cycle that I use to spin it and drain it without pouring more water onto it, not rinse, but just spin and drain. And I do that a couple of times. And that's how I wash them. It's not as nice with this new washer as it used to be. I do wish that I had taken Robert up on the offer to save the washing machine for just fleeces. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's my process. And so Lori had some questions. Let me just let people know what the questions were. Her first question was, do I skirt my fleece before sending it to a mill? And I would say yes. For example, the fleece I had with all those shortcuts, when you send it off to the mill, they will do some skirting and they will do some tumbling to get debris off of it. But it's, I think, better if you can do some of that yourself. So you can look at it and say, oh, this is poopy, or these are shortcuts, or this area here is a color that I don't really want blended into my fleece, like the very, very darkest, blackest part of my Romney. I didn't want to blend that in with the steel gray because I really like that steel gray color. So there's a lot of reasons to skirt and do some sorting before you send it to a mill, even though the producers typically skirt them pretty well for a show. Not always, like my one with all the second cuts, right? That's unusual. I don't think I've ever had a fleece with as many second cuts as poor Mr. Magoo. And then she says, do I dare process it myself? And I say, go for it. At least I would say, even if you're going to send it to a mill, you want to maybe at least process a small amount yourself just to see what the process is like. It could be a very small amount that you can fit into a lingerie bag. If you have a small lingerie bag, just take a little bit of it and do the process that I talked about with a small lingerie bag in your sink or in a couple of buckets, white buckets. And then you can see if you like that process or not. And if you do, you can keep processing in small batches like that. It's a little daunting to process an entire fleece and then have an entire fleece that you feel the need to spin.
Yeah.
Right. So at least for the washing process, I would say try it. And then you're going to need some carding equipment, like hand cards or hand combs or a flicking brush, a flick carder brush. So there are some tools needed to do the rest of the processing to get it ready to spin. But again, you won't know if you like doing that unless you try it. And so trying it with a small amount is probably good. And then she asked, how do I know which mill to select? Well, I can give a couple of recommendations for California. There is Moro Fleece Works. Sherry at Moro Fleece Works does beautiful roving. She really, I know people have used her and have been really happy. I've actually not ever sent a fleece to her to be processed, but I know lots and lots of people who have. And I've actually spun some of her roving that I've gotten from other people. So in D-Stash and so on. And I know it's really nice. So that's a mill that I can suggest in California. The other mill that I can suggest is Valley Oak Wool Mill, Markale. She's up in the Sacramento area in Woodland. Sherry at Moro Fleece Works is down south of me in Morro Bay. And I know that you can make an appointment with Markale and probably with Sherry also to drive down and drop your fleeces off. And you can also mail them, ship them to them. So, and then Marsha, do you know of mills in your area?
No, I don't. There was mills that so I had stuff processed years ago at Fantasy Fibers in Canby, Oregon, but she retired and all of her equipment went to Youthful Fiber.
Okay.
But she's not processed anything for people. She's just processing, I believe, because I tried dropping off fleeces there and I couldn't do it. So I don't know of anybody that processes for individuals. I'll do a search and see if I can.
I'm just for our listeners, it'd be worth maybe if you're in that area. She's in southern part of Washington. Is that right?
She's in Oregon.
She's in Oregon. Okay.
Somewhere on the I-5 corridor, and I believe south of Portland, north of Eugene, right along in there someplace. I'll check it out and see. Well, the question, how do I know which mill to select? My first thought was, well, find a mill. Yeah. Because there's not a lot of mills left anymore, right? We've had endless discussions about that.
There are more of them that process fleece into roving. There's very few of them that will actually process your fleece all the way into yarn, which is an interesting thing that Markale does. And she actually has partnered with Sherry. I'm remembering something she told me in a conversation. She actually has partnered with Sherry. She doesn't have the equipment to take a fine fleece from fleece to roving and then from roving to yarn. But Sherry can take your fine fleece from fleece to roving, send it up to Markale, and then Markale can take Sherry's roving and make it into yarn. Anyway, it's worth a call to all three of these places, especially if you're close to one of them and can drop off a fleece rather than pay the shipping to send it.
Right.
And just as an aside, I'm going to Lambtown. That's October 7th and 8th in Dixon. And Markale will be at Lambtown, and I have dropped fleeces off to her at Lambtown. And so again, if you're going to be at Lambtown, that's a place where you can drop off a fleece. Her next question is a 4.5 pound fleece too small for most mills? And I think most of them tell on their website what is the minimum fleece size. And we can link to all of these mills that we're talking about. And then you can just go take a look on their website and maybe shoot them an email about your fleece. I think 4.5 is not too small. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't think 4.5 is too small for the two mills here in California. And then the next question is, how do you know how much yarn the fleece will yield? Well, you don't really.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be loss. And I have found that I have more loss from commercial carding than I do from doing my own carding. But that said, I also have more time lost from doing my own carding than from having things commercially processed. So,
right.
And yeah, I don't know. You could lose as much as half, maybe a little more, depending on how heavy with lanolin your fleece is and how well skirted it is before it goes to the mill, right? The better the skirting process before it goes to the mill, the less loss you'll have from skirting. So it depends on, like my Romney fleece, I probably wouldn't lose that much in the processing, commercial processing, because that is not a really high lanolin fleece at all. So that's kind of, yeah. And you can kind of talk with them too and, get an idea of what they estimate the loss will be. But yeah, you do have quite a bit of loss in the processing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a 4.5 pound fleece will give you a lot of yarn. Even with the loss, it will give you a lot of yarn.
Yeah, you can at least make a sweater out of, for sure.
You'll get back a lot of roving. You'll get back a lot of roving from a 4.5 pound fleece. Yeah, you definitely could get a sweater's worth. So anyway, that's the end of the questions. It was so fun at the auction. I met a couple of people, Lori, one of our listeners, and also Aline. You remember her from Knockers. She was there and I got to talk to her. And then I met some new people who were asking questions about how to process and what to do and what fleeces were good and how could I give them any tips. And so that was really fun. The other two fleeces that I got in the fleece auction, one was another Romney. And again, I couldn't let this one go no sale. I had seen the washed locks on the board because one of the Anne's Web members washes one lock from every fleece, and then they staple it up to a board so you can see what it looks like washed. And I kid you not, this lock was from my tip of my finger down past my wrist. It was so long.
Wow.
It's a Romney, and it's way too long to send to be processed. First of all, most processors can't handle fleece lengths that long. But just beautiful. And Marsha, guess how much it weighs?
12 pounds.
Yeah, 12.5 pounds. Yes.
I'm guessing. I was just guessing, but
there was no way this fleece was going to sell. Nobody was bidding. It was 12.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And I knew that it would go no sale. And it was one of our new producers who hasn't entered in the show before. And I already knew the fleece was gorgeous. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take one for the team.
No, you had to.
That's right. It's
Kelly,
a tough job.
You had to buy it.
I had
to buy it.
That one I really had to.
Yeah, no, there's no question.
That the silver gray Romney, the steel gray Romney, I didn't have to do that one. But I did have to buy this one. Yeah. So I got two Romneys, the East Frisian, and then there was a Columbia. And I just finished spinning Columbia this summer spinning. I finished the last of a Columbia fleece that I had. And I thought it also was not, was looking like maybe it wouldn't sell. Oh no, that was the one I just tried to bid it up and I ended up having to get it. I was hoping someone else would, that the person I was bidding against would go up another 50 cents. So, but I like Columbia and I just finished up the Columbia fleece that I had in. So it should be a nice one.
Yeah.
I think I might actually
Nice.
send this one away to be processed, the Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
But Sherry was there for people to drop off their fleeces, but I have a hard time doing that because I want to play with it first.
I know.
So
because I remember, she just had a trailer there, and everyone's just buying their fleeces and dropping them off.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, you kind of want to play.
So I wanted to bring it home and play with it first, and then if I decide to have it processed, I might just bring it to Lambtown. And drop it off there. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. All right. So I think that's everything.
So I think we're just going to say something too, because we've been so busy, and this is a very long episode. We're going to save the prizes for the summer spin-in, which the summer spin-in ended Labor Day, and because there's been so much going on, we're going to devote next episode to drawing the prizes and announcing the winners.
Yes.
And because school started, you're on the edge of a strike. We need to just devote an episode to celebrating the end of the summer spin-in and the winners. So we'll do that the next episode.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Any other business?
Nope.
That's it, I think.
That's it.
Oh, I'm going to say one thing.
Okay.
This is completely off topic, but sometimes we do recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered on YouTube, there's a channel, and I think it's fabulous. It has absolutely nothing to do with spinning or fiber or anything, but I discovered it, and it's called Itchy Boots. And it's a young woman and she's from the Netherlands. And she rides her motorcycle all over the world. And I swear, watching this, I'm thinking to myself, I think I need to get a motorcycle. So she I'm not doing it. But do you know how Ben has been talking about wanting to ride his motorcycle to Argentina, to South America, and I'm like panicked about it. Anyway, she rode her motorcycle from Argentina all the way to Alaska and to Prudhoe Bay by herself.
Wow.
And no support crew. She does all the filming herself, all the editing, and absolutely fantastic videos. So interesting. And she's now going she's traveling all through the continent of Africa. And fascinating, really, really interesting. So if you want to be an armchair adventurer, follow Itchy Boots, because I think she's on a break right now, and she's doing, and she said she took a break after Togo, I think, because she has to take malaria medication, and that's really hard on your body. So she was taking a break, and she went home, and she's now doing 3 different rides. And she's doing one, I believe, in Spain right now. And then she's going to go back to Togo and continue the ride in a little bit after the rainy season, apparently. But cool. Really interesting. Highly recommend it. So I'll put a link in the. I'm not buying a motorcycle, Kelly. But it made me really think, if I was just a few years younger and braver, I would probably do it. So, but anyway.
All right.
Okay. So I think with that, we'll say goodbye.
Yes. We'll talk in 2 weeks.
All righty. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 U's
doing our part for World Fleece.